Hello everyone, it's Old Guardian here. Hearthstone patch 24.0 is coming tomorrow, and with the patch there's going to be some important bug fixes and a lot of mercenary changes. In fact, 32 mercenaries are going to be buffed. Yeah, that's almost 1/3 of all mercenaries. But also there's a couple of pretty important bug fixes. At the end of the patch note, there's the section bug fixes and game improvements. This is of course for all game modes, but the mercenary part starts here. Fix the bug causing some players to get stuck in the Mercenaries tutorial. Hey, it's a very good idea to let people actually play the game. Fix the bug sometimes causing error message after getting a new mercenary. Fix the bug where players would sometimes upgrade a mercenary's ability or equipment and the upgrade wouldn't take effect. Yeah, some people were saying that, hey, it always takes effect, you just have to wait a little bit, but I've had the contrary experience that sometimes it just didn't go through, and now that has been fixed. Also, improved the appearance of tooltips, addressing issues as lengthy tooltips getting cut off in mercenaries. Fixed bugs and wording is various mercenaries' abilities, equipment and treasures. Okay, that's kind of like, okay, which bugs are now fixed? We won't know, we will have to try out, but some bugs have been fixed, yay. And this one. Weakened and slowed down. The Doppelgangster encounter. Yes, yes, yes. Turns out, Blizzard now found out that, hey, actually, turning Doppelgangster from 0 speed to 2 speed doesn't really change anything. Like, yeah, if you have Grom in your party, then you can slow one of them down further and then you maybe win, but I mean, who even runs Grom nowadays, because orcs are not really that much in fashion. But anyway, Doppelgangster nerfs, I don't know what they are going to be yet. The patch is coming live tomorrow, but Doppelgangster nerfs are finally coming. And then more than 30 mercenary buffs. Mind you, not all of the buffs are important or major ones, but buffs nonetheless, so let's take a look. First of all, the Explorers. Sir Finley is being added to the game with the rewards track, and the Explorers are being changed to accommodate Sir Finley. Passive, your Explorers have +5/+12. Passive, give your Explorers +4/+4 at the end of each turn. And then, Brand Bronze Fed, Summit Campfire. According to this, it has been fixed. It was an ability that, for all the way up to now, like almost 2 months since release, it did nothing. I mean, you could click the button, but nothing happened. Click, 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 click. Nothing happened. But now, it's going to get buffed, and it's going to be made to work. Yay! +5 frost resistance. This turn, enemies who have acted take critical damage. In addition to being reworded and given +1 more frost resistance, Summit Campfire has had some bugs addressed that prevented its full effect from working. Or any effect from working. Anyway, now when the effect triggers, enemies who have already acted will take critical damage, and any enemies who act after this effect goes will take critical damage for the rest of the turn. If Brand dies, all enemies already impacted will stay impacted, but no additional enemies will be afflicted. Okay, so Brand buff, Elise changes, Reno changes. So as far as I can tell, the Elise and Reno changes are just changes to accommodate Finley. And this one casts random one of Reno's looted powers twice. Okay, well this might actually be a functional change. Previously it was possible to cast 2 abilities, now it's 1 ability twice, maybe. Or maybe it's just the same and just reworded, who knows. Anyway, then the actual meaningful changes. Wrathion actually becomes better. It's interesting whether Wrathion becomes good enough, because Wrathion was pretty useless. But getting a bit of a stat buff, 1284 max stats, Creeping Madness from speed 8 to now speed 4. Okay, so much faster with the attack. And Tail Swipe, instead of 20 damage randomly to left or right, now 15 damage to an enemy you get to pick the target. And deal 5 damage to all enemies to the left or right of it. Alright, so that's a pretty nice buff to Wrathion's toolkit. Wrathion was totally useless before, but maybe Wrathion will find some uses now. Then Drekta, also gaining 8 health, and then Spirit Guide, the cooldown is being removed from Spirit Guide. But Shamanism. Spirit Guide is the one that summons a Spirit Wolf for you, and Shamanism is the ability that you gain after an orc dies. So for PvE purposes, this is totally useless. I mean, having 0 cooldown, okay, now you can summon the Spirit Guide on turn 1. But Spirit Guide without Shamanism, it doesn't even have taunt. It has nothing. It's just really, really useless. So you really need to have Shamanism to make it do something, and then Shamanism might not be that easy to get. Anyway, Brightwing. Big changes to Brightwing and big buffs to Brightwing. I'm not sure if these are enough to make Brightwing part of the comp again. Like before Nefarian was released, I actually played a ton with the Dragon comp of Yulon, Brightwing and Sinestra, and it's really strong. And Brightwing just keeps everyone so alive. Alongside Sinestra, it's really hard to get any of them killed. And Brightwing bringing that blue Merc to that comp means that it's quite flexible. But then Nefarian was added, and Nefarian deals more damage than Brightwing. Sinestra is still enough to keep everyone alive alongside Pearl of Yulon from Yulon, so you didn't really need Brightwing for anything. You just dealt more damage and ended the encounters faster when you had Nefarian in the comp, whereas Brightwing just kind of didn't do much. But now Brightwing getting big stat buff from 777 to 888, and Fairy Breath from 10 damage to 12 damage, and then bigger buffs to the bench as well. Phase Shift, if you control another Merc, return this to your bench. So now more control to Phase Shift. Brightwing's Ring, Phase Shift restores 25 more health. Bench after a Merc dies, summon this and cast Fairy Breath 5 at a random enemy immediately. So all these bench mechanics typically are more PvP focused than PvE focused, because in PvE you typically don't want to lose your Mercs. Obviously with Brightwing, with Phase Shift, you can just throw Brightwing back to the bench, so you have some level of control, but that's not something that you really want to use very often, and most of the bench mechanics still require Mercs to die. Then there's Brightwing's Necklace. Fairy Breath gives an additional +5 health. New Battlecry gives you lowest health Merc on your bench +15 health. So while most of the Brightwing changes are oriented towards PvP, this also might make Brightwing a little bit stronger, and will make Brightwing somewhat stronger in PvE as well. Whether it can now grab Nefarian's plagues back, I don't know. Maybe not. But interesting. And of course, in the new Kutun event, there's going to be some need for dragons, so Brightwing can be a strong dragon for that one. And this is probably the change that I'm most excited about. Lady Anacondra. Dev comment. Lady Anacondra always felt like a Merc that needed her equipment just to get her abilities to baseline levels. So we baked 2 of the equipment effects into her abilities, and updated those equipment with new Viper summoning effects. Oh, wow, like you get an equipment, and you get an equipment, and you get an equipment, and Serpent's Bite from dealing 6 damage to dealing 12 damage, and stats from 876 to 984, and Mend Beast restore 15 health to a character and this Merc. Toxic Venom to gets 3 nature abilities, summon a 0-15 Nightmare Viper, or Signal of the Wild's Battle Cry, summon a 0-15 Nightmare Viper. Nightmare Viper almost has as much attack as it has health, so that's actually going to be a 15-15. And what this means in practice is that Lady Anacondra is back. Like, in the very early days of Mercenaries, used to play this budget nature comp with Anacondra, Bruka and Guff. And lately I have been playing that with Kuki, Bruka and Guff. But now Anacondra is going to be seriously strong, and with that healing also now able to heal 2 characters at once, regardless of the equipment, being able to deal more damage, summoning stuff. Anacondra, Bruka and Guff, the new budget nature comp, mark my words. I'll have to take that out for a spin when the patch is live, but yeah, this looks like a really sweet buff. And then we have Mogul the Oracle. Mogul always wanted to be the healer for the Murloc party, but unfortunately other characters provided more value. Yeah, that they did. But Mogul stats from 983 to 1093, Murloc Missile from dealing 10 damage to dealing 14 damage, and also health buff for Murlocs from 5 to 6, Healing Wave, new no cooldown on Healing Wave, this is a big deal, nature healing spell, no cooldown, restore 15 health to a character and 10 health to your Murlocs, wow, AoE healing the Murlocs as well. And Dowsing Rod, new passive after one of your Murlocs takes 20 or more damage in a single hit, restore 8 health to it. That's really sweet updates to Mogul as well. And then Guff. Guff also getting some love. Guff always relied on Brambleton Totem to give Living Brambles his damage up. Yes, you literally, when you played Guff, you updated Living Brambles, you updated Brambleton Totem, you didn't have to do anything else. That's Guff. That's a boy. Now from 1080 to 1291 max stats. And Living Brambles, Brambleton Totem baked in, deal 14 damage. Wow. And Brambleton Totem, new Battlecry restore 20 health to your characters, so PvP oriented change. Now that's going to be a PvP piece of equipment. But anyway, one thing that I'm really thinking about is, does this make Brukan a target? Because Guff is getting a ton of health, and Lady Anacondra is getting a ton of health. So does that mean that Brukan is actually going to be the one that's going to be targeted because you really, really want Brukan to live in your nature comp? We'll have to try that out, but yeah, definitely taking the budget nature team out for a spin when the patch is live. And then Garrosh Hellscream, no, not my Garrosh. I will have to max my Garrosh now. By the way, there is no reason not to max your Garrosh anymore. Makora. Old, attack an enemy, attacks Mercs back. New, take 5 less damage this turn. Attack an enemy, it attacks back. Additionally, Makora is now speed 5 at all levels. So the synergy with Thrall is now broken. You are going to Makora before Thrall gives you more attack. But as an upside, you're going to take 5 less damage that turn. So actually there's a pretty big health bonus for Garrosh. So even though you lose a little bit of that attack, you get one attack back for maxing your Garrosh now out of that 5. So you're still -4 compared to where you used to be. But this should be playable even without the Thrall synergy now. And then Lich King, more stats, more attack, more health, and Frostbite is now speed 5 at all levels. Kooky the Cook. Dev comment, Kooky was the first playable Merc that we designed with the bleed. At the time we thought bleed should scale with spell damage, and I scaled that bleed with spell damage so much. I scaled that bleed, Brukan and Kooky and Papau bleeding for like 20 or 30 and ha, so good times, but then they removed that and I was all sad. But at least now they're going to give Kooky baseline bleed 10, so a little bit of rescue there. Also restore 10 health to friendly Murlocs and pirates. And then Zarzira the Sea Witch from 877 to 986. There's lots of big stat buffs coming. And Upstart Acolyte, passive plus 20 health. The first time a friendly character is frozen each turn, freeze a random enemy. Instead of whenever a friendly character is frozen. There was an infinite loop. In Infinite Loop with Zarzira, it was pretty hilarious looking. I saw Vexia was the first one that I know who talked about it and showed a video of that. And yeah, it was just Zarzira's freezing each other and everyone else. But now the loop is broken, they have reworded the ability. Also, potentially weakened the ability a little bit, but hey, infinite loops are bad for you. Don't do infinite loops. And then a pretty major change, Uther. Uther has always struggled to find a place in the Holy team. Now, Uther is a red. Uther is going to be a protector, no longer a blue. Also getting some stats, 1291 max stats, and Hammer of Justice is going to deal 15 damage. So Uther already now in his kit, he has the ability to make taunt with no cooldown. Yeah, Uther can even be a tank for the Holy team, a tank that can also deal damage with spells and has Avenging Wrath. So yeah, this is a very interesting alternative for a Holy Comp tank, aside from Cornelius. So yeah, really looking forward to playing with Uther. Playing with Uther, playing with Lady Anacondra. Those are some things that I'm really looking forward to. Maybe trying out some Moggling with Murlocs. There's a bunch of stuff here. And what else do we get? We get King Crush. Tiny bit of health. No, why does King Crush have only 76 health? Even Uther has 91. Sad times. I mean, King Crush is a freaking dinosaur. He's a dinosaur. And Uther is an old man with a beard. How can Uther have more health? I don't get it. But be that as it may, also Devil Soar no longer on cooldown, so you can now make those Rush Devil Soars. Should help a little bit with the tasks, I suppose. Other than that, Devil Soar is not an ability I use very often, so I don't see practical relevance. Then there's going to be a lot of these stat buffs, so a lot of changes are just stat buffs. Kurtos gains 3 health, Tavish gains 1 attack, 3 health, Jaraxxus gains 2 health, 2 attack. Fun thing about this, by the way, because lots of characters are gaining a few points of health, maybe a little bit of attack. That means that in many cases, these non-maxed characters are now looking like max characters of the pre-buff era. So kind of like if you're looking at old Mercenaries with us, hey, that's a max character with that many stats. Well, now you're going to have that baseline, even if your character is not maxed. So that should make various bounties, for example, a little bit easier. Then we have Manoroth 1384. that might actually be a pretty important change, because Manoroth benefits from attack and from health. Tamsin Rome to 1087, Vaughn to 1090. A lot of health upgrades here. Rokaro 1079. Ragnar's getting a stat buff from 969 to 1075. And well, in Fire Comp, Ragnar's is often the squishiest member of the Fire Comp. And now Ragnar's is going to have 6 more health baseline, which actually means that your non-maxed Ragnar's is now going to be stronger than the pre-buff maxed Ragnar's was. And that's going to improve the survivability of Ragnar's. That's going to make Fire Comp even more consistent in climbing, and maybe open... I'm not sure if it really opens up new avenues for it. I mean, Yulon Ragnar's Geddon is the way that you do fast stuff, then Belinda Ragnar's Geddon if you need to do more difficult stuff. Does the 6 health mean that Yulon is going to be able to carry further? Maybe, I'm not sure. And Antonidas also getting a bit of health. Then Vanessa Van Cleef. Okay, Vanessa, a bit more of a redesign. Originally, the fantasy of Vanessa was that she'd steal a bunch of attack and then get a big payoff with makeshift weaponry. In practice, spending all your stolen was too high a cost. Yeah, it was. Also meant that makeshift weapon was a dead ability on her first turn. So now Vanessa, 1386 plus 11 health. And makeshift weaponry to speed 7, deal 12 damage to all enemies, improved by stolen attack, no cooldown. And extra pockets, battle cry, steal 4 attack from an enemy opposite this. This can be a very useful effect in many cases. We'll see. Maybe Vanessa becomes like baseline in Pirate Comp from this? Maybe not. Maybe that's too much to ask for, but yeah, Vanessa also another one, interesting one that's getting changed. New Zhao from 1080 to 1087. Yay, go Bane Gore! Because New Zhao is often the one who's dying in Bane Gore. New Zhao is pretty good at protecting others, but not so good at protecting himself, and now 7 extra health. Yes, that's really big deal. Vandar getting 3 health, Deathwing getting a couple of points of attack, 4 health. Onyxia getting 1 attack, 5 health. And then the second was already dealing fire damage. Well, just wording update. Lady Vashi gaining 2 attack and 6 health. Captain Hooktas gaining 3 attack and 8 health. Captain Hooktas is getting a lot of buffs, because Captain Hooktas' abilities were already buffed earlier. And now with this big stat buff, we'll see what happens. And then Trigor the Lasher. I can see Trigor. I can see Backlash being affected. Old Backlash. Is this going to be the Trigor nerf? No, it's not going to be the Trigor nerf. This is not a functional change to Trigor, just a wording update. But we also fixed the bug so that Trigor no longer hits after Trigor is functionally dead, and no longer hits enemies who are functionally dead. This might sometimes be important. We'll see, like, there are some cases where an effect like kills Trigor and keeps dealing damage to characters, changes to Trigor and Trigor keeps shooting back, and that should no longer happen, but probably only of minor consequence. But overall, no meaningful Trigor changes. And then finally, Murky. Murky gaining 1 health. Yeah, Murky had 1 health too few. Clearly, Murky was inferior. Now, Murky is much better. And Marching Murlocs summoned by the March of Murlocs equipment. Speed 4. And that's it. 32 Mercenaries changed. Then Trigor the Lasher not really changed, but fixed the bug and that. Then there's a bunch of bug fixes. We don't even know what all of those bug fixes are, because they were not elaborated on. We don't know, for example, is Queen Azara bounty fixed? We'll have to go and find out. But Doppelgangster has been nerfed, so yeah, we're not getting new content as such, but we are getting a lot of these balance changes, and this will mean that playing with Lady Anacondra, playing with Morgul the Oracle, playing with Vanessa Van Cleef, playing with Uther. There's a bunch of new basically new mercenaries to play with. And I really look forward to this patch, and I'll probably revisit some of the old bounties as well and see what these new effects can get done in those. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the content, please click the like button, subscribe to my channel, and check out my Twitch channel.